It's been 153 days since I last created. Over 20 weeks since I've sat down to make something. Almost half a year. Can you believe that? Everyday life this year has been busy. So busy, it's kept me from creating for the longest time. But today is the day I fix that. It's time to pull out my scissors and get crafting. But what do I make? What if I've forgotten how to make pretty things? I'm as nervous as a husband in a craft store because I really want to make the most of the time I have today. I want to be sure to avoid some pretty common mistakes that busy crafters make so that I can get creating fast. I'll share exactly what to do if you're in a hurry and if you're not sure where to start, including the big mistakes that busy crafters can make that leave them feeling frustrated and overwhelmed. You'll want to be sure to avoid these. Mistake number 1 is overcomplicating things. If you're already feeling overwhelmed and frustrated, you'll want to make your very first project as simple as possible. Simple and easy. Today I'm starting with a die set from Scrap Diva Designs. They are super cute and fun to create with, and they're the perfect choice if you want to make something that doesn't require too much creative thinking. They will help me get started on something super fast. All I need to do is cut all the dies out and then assemble. If you haven't seen the store yet, you need to check it out. It is full of the cutest dies ever that will help you make all kinds of papercraft projects. I'll be sure to leave a link below. And if you use my code, Created by Gwen, you'll get 10% off your order. A huge thank you to Erica for sending me so many of her beautiful dies to create with. Today I'm using the Loaded Pocket Trio set to create a mini album, and I'll get started on that in a moment. First though, we need to chat about mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 is saving supplies for the perfect project. Busy crafters know what their favourite supplies are, and they use them. They don't save them up for a day that may never come. Instead, they use what they love today because they know that using supplies that really inspire helps projects come together faster and easier. Busy crafters don't have time to use products they don't love. For today's project, I've pulled out a box of Maggie Home supplies. I love her collections and I always find them fun and easy to work with. I'm not looking for a challenge today. I just want to get in and create. Today I'll be making a super fun summer themed mini album, and I'm going to start by batch cutting out all of the album pages. Whenever I'm really short on time, I love to batch create, and that just means that I'm doing all of the repetitive tasks in a project grouped together. This makes creating so much faster and easier because you really get into the flow of the task that you're doing in the batch. So for example, here I've taken the time to set up my Big Shot machine, and it's not going to be a lot of extra work to run through all of the pages rather than say 1 or 2 of them and then coming back to this. When I'm really short on time, I batch as much as possible. At this point in the project, I don't really have a clear idea of which page is going to go where, but that's what I love about this style of mini album. All I'm doing at this point is cutting out a bunch of the pages and elements, and I'll work out the order in which they go and how things come together as I go. Here's why this die set is called a Loaded Pocket Trio. It comes with this die here that creates a pocket for the front of the tag. It's super clever actually because it has these gussets on the side, which means that it sort of expands outward and can fit quite a lot in there. You can of course use this die set as a gift tag, and that's actually what it was made for, but I am turning it into a mini album, so I'm going to use that loaded pocket section for the front cover. I have a plan, and that's going to include adding some extra photos and embellishments to that front section. The quality of these dies is so good. Even on these super fine details all around the scallops there are the tiniest little dots. It's almost like a lace. It's beautiful, and every time I've cut these out, I've gotten super clean, lovely cuts on really thick pattern paper and cardstock. This particular set comes with loads and loads of different pieces, and it's all designed to work together so that you can create beautiful layers in your projects. So you'll see there's a piece for the outside of the tag, which is that lacy part, and then there is an inner section that you can cut from a contrasting piece of pattern paper. It has a beautiful stitch detail around the edge as well. And then, of course, there's the loaded pocket section. So I have just cut that out with the die, done a couple of folds, and then added to the front of the tag here with a liquid adhesive. Next, I'll work on all the pages for inside the mini album, and all I'm going to do is mix and match the pattern papers that I have here from this collection and create a bunch of them. Now comes the hard part, deciding what page should go where. Here's the order I decided on. I am going to keep them attached on this jump ring while I create the rest of the album. I like to work this way because then I know where everything's going. Mistake number 3 is underestimating the value of 15 minutes. Sometimes, actually quite often, it can be very hard to find a big block of time to create in. So I like to create in 15-minute blocks. That way, I can work on my project little by little over time. You'll be surprised at just how much you can do in 15 minutes. I've switched picking up my phone to scroll Pinterest with picking up my scissors to create. Mistake number 4 is thinking too far ahead. And for me, this is where the overwhelm kicks in. I'm a stressor, and I can let my head get in the way, especially when I'm overwhelmed in other parts of my life. And that can take away the joy of creating. Instead of just focusing on the project or the next step in the project, my mind can trick me into thinking things like, why bother? If you're not going to finish it, why even start? Or this project is too big to even try. Sometimes I don't even want to try a new technique or an idea because I think, well, what if it doesn't work out? I've wasted my time. I remind myself to just think about what I should do next. What is the next step? I don't need to have the project worked out completely. It's okay if I don't have a very clear plan. I can just get started. This is a great mindset to have in general and works really well with those 15-minute blocks because all I need to do is think about what I'm going to do in those 15 minutes. And you know what? Every time I've done that, the projects have worked out beautifully. I think because I'm taking the pressure off myself. I'm not so focused on the outcome of the project, but far more interested in enjoying the process. You might be surprised to know that for this mini album, I actually created in 15-minute blocks. I did not think too far ahead. I just focused on what I can do in the current 15-minute block. So those 15 minutes may have been just focusing on this front section. It may have been just choosing what photos I wanted to use in the album and then printing them. I even did one 15-minute block by adding stitching. On a project like this one, you could even work one page at a time. This is going to be a summer mini album, and I am working with a summer themed collection. This one is Sunny Days by Maggie Holmes. I also did have, though, in that same box of supplies, some odds and sods, some bits and pieces, all Maggie Holmes. I think some were from Cute Girl, and there was one other collection as well. I have restricted, though, all of my choices to what's inside that box. So I have not gone looking in my stash for anything else. I'm only working with those limited supplies. You might think that limiting the supplies would make things harder, but for a creative like me, it actually makes it so much easier. I'm the type that will want to audition all the things in all the places. So whenever I'm working with fewer supplies, I have less auditioning to do. So here's a look at all the pages I have set up so far. It's now time to add in some photos. I've gone ahead and added stitching to some, and others I've die cut out with this piece in the die set. It has a beautiful stitched element around the edge, and it cuts out the photos beautifully. They are so crisp. I did go ahead and print my photos in black and white. I just thought that that would give the album a bit more of a consistent look, just given that I'm working with photos that were taken over like several years. Some of them too weren't the best quality, and I find that printing in black and white sort of is a little more forgiving in that. Oh yes, and I'm mainly using 3x4-inch photos. They seem to me to be the perfect size for the size of the tags. You might notice here too that I am not working front to back in the album. I'm actually working in quite a disorganized way. If I find a page and an element that fits, I'm working on that section. I found this to be a really fun way to create when I'm short on time. Mistake number 5 is underestimating the value of a decluttered craft room. I know, I talk about this a lot, but it's because it just makes such a difference. If it's finally time for you to get your craft room sorted, you can learn more by clicking the link in the description box below. If you're spending more time looking for craft supplies than creating with them, it's time to sort your space out. Oh, I wish I could share with you just how good it feels to have fewer supplies and how much easier and faster it makes things. I really am loving how this album is coming together. I love too that because it's all on a jump ring, I can add pages in and take pages out to create and work on them as much as I like, which is really good if you're stepping away from the project. You can still, when you're done, clip it all up, but you've not locked anything in permanently. If you want to change the order of pages, you can. If you want to add extra elements in pages in, you can do that too. I have used the tags themselves as the real base and the foundation of the album, but once I got creating, I felt like it was a little bit too consistent. It was a bit same. So what I've done is in between those pages, I've added in some other more interesting things like some acetate pieces. There's some tags that are from the collection in a smaller format. And I really just wanted to mix up the size and shape of each of the pages as you flick through the album. I've always struggled with those acetate pieces too. I've never been able to really find a good place for them on a layout, but I love them in mini albums. I think they add a really interesting texture and element to these kinds of projects. I found the albums look particularly good when they're quite dimensional. I like them to be quite chunky, so I do use a lot of the 3D foam tape, not only to mount my photos, but also within my paper layers. If you do have a little more time, you could even add in some fabric pages into this album. I have done that in the past, but for today's project, I wanted to keep things simple. You know, when you are short on time, you do have to make choices. And for me, getting a project created and finished and done was worth not going to all that extra effort. I'm reminded of that verse in Ecclesiastes, there is a time for everything. I'm in a really busy season of my life right now, and I'm working hard on trying to enjoy the season for what it is and to work with what I have. And if that means that not every project has hours of stitching on it, then I'm okay with that. This is actually my most favorite part of the creative process. I love it when I have the structure and the bones of a project sorted, and all I need to do now is add those embellishments and the extra layers and get to play with all of the pretty things. I love too that by adding photos, the project sort of comes to life. It's almost like building a house. You have to do the structural work, you have to get the base foundation ready and right, but then after that, you can do all of the pretty creative things. Here's a look at how the front cover is coming together. I've got lots and lots of layers. You can see I have tucked in some extra photos into that front pocket section there. And I did have an idea. I am going to get some of the extra photos that I had, and I'm going to pop them onto a USB stick. A USB will easily fit in that front pocket, so that will be a really cute element to add to this mini album. Of course, I also had to add a big bow to the front because I'm all about them bows. I'm quite surprised at how few bows are in this project actually, because this collection did have quite a few, but I just couldn't make them work. I am loving how chunky this looks so far. So pretty. What I did notice at this point is that as I'm flipping through the album, a couple of the pieces are getting stuck on the jump ring. It's getting a little bit small for all those extra layers that I've added in, so I am going to switch that out for a bigger one. I'm also going to add some simple embellishments to the backs of these tags. I so wish they were made out of double-sided pattern paper, but not meant to be. I can easily fix that. And yes, here I go again, auditioning bows and not finding a place for them. These puffy stickers are super cute though, and I love how they are the very same font as the ones I used on the front cover. A super fast way to make your project feel really put together is to repeat shapes and icons within it. I use this idea on my scrapbook layouts all the time, and it's great for mini albums as well. It can save you a lot of time because instead of trying to find separate elements that go together and trying to make them match, if you just repeat what you already have, it's naturally going to look more cohesive. I used this trick in the photos, remember? I've also repeated the prints in the pattern papers, as well as lots of the icons that I've used in the album. That big blue butterfly that's on the front page of the album, I have 2 more of those included inside the album pages. There are lots of little things that you can do like that that really help you to create a little bit faster, and when you're short on time, all those little things do add up. I also want to acknowledge the fact that if you're feeling really busy and overwhelmed in your everyday life, that being creative and feeling inspired to create could be quite tricky. If all this seems really overwhelming, I have put together a PDF of 10 simple things that you can do right now that will help inspire you to create. It's free and there's a link for it in the description box below. And here's a look at the finished album. I love how this turned out. The photos sit into that little pocket there so sweetly. And yes, I do have room for my USB. I've also got a bunch of cute little pages, and then the larger ones are those ones that I've cut from the die set with my photos all printed out. The format, the 3x4 photos are actually the perfect size for this tag size. And then, yep, embellishing on the backs of those white pages. Lots of different textures here. I've got the stitching, I've got puffy stickers, die cuts, and of course the acetate. Love how this turned out. This was so fun to make. What if time isn't the real reason that you haven't been creating? What if you've lost your mojo? What if you're just not inspired to create? Well, that's happened to me too. And here's what I've done about it. Be sure to watch this video next. Thank you so much for being here, my creative friends. I'll see you all again very soon. Until then, bye.